So I want to share a little bit about, who I am and why should you listen to me, and just give you a little bit of the background of where I've come from in order to be able to give you the advice to buy these types of properties that I'm recommending. Look, my parents actually taught me that property is the best investment. They both worked in a job and they retired financially free because of their real estate investments. Right? That's the first unit they bought in Australia when we came in 1973 for $18,000, sold it 4 years later for $33,000. Today, it's worth $1.2 million. So property is a good investment, right? It just keeps going up. Now, you can also add value by renovating. They did quite a number of renovations over the years. This one they bought in 1978 for $57,000. It was a rundown terrace on Bondi Road, Bondi. The famous Bondi Beach right there. It was used as a boarding house. They turned it into a lovely little family home and sold it for over $150,000, $167,000 to be exact. Today, that property is worth about $4.5 million, and it's just on 200 square meters of land size. Now, they also bought, the next property they bought was in Bellevue Hill. They bought it at an auction. Again, a rundown old house. They renovated it. Bought it in 1986 for $167,000, sold it for $1,020,000 just 11 years later, all the way back in 1997. That's how much houses were worth in Sydney and Bellevue Hill back in even 28 years ago. Today, it looks like this. It's a beautiful block of home units, probably worth over $10 million now. And you can see me there standing in the driveway there, just reminiscing a little bit about, how we used to live there. Now, my own property investing history. Look, I bought my first investment property about 1980, right? And I purchased 24 more properties for myself since then. And I have never lost money on any property that I invested in. And the simple reason for that is as long as you're getting income from the property and you can hold it, right? You're going to make money either by the property going up or because you're getting income, from the property. Some of the properties I started with were investment units and townhouses, but I didn't have a lot of money. I've done land subdivisions, 6 or 7 renovations. I've done townhouse and duplex site approvals as well. And all the way along the way, I have learned about the principles of real estate that I'm going to share with you throughout your journey if you actually come along for this journey with me. I actually went through a bit of a relationship breakdown when I was 29. I'd sold a couple of properties I owned by then. And I went from basically sharing a house with 2 Japanese students back in, when I was 29, which is now 40 years ago. And 14 years later, I bought this beautiful property on the Gold Coast in 2003 for $1,210,000 and sold it literally just 6 months later for a $230,000 profit. And the way I sold that was because I advertised it in a way that all the agents said wouldn't work. But I've written a book actually on that. I'll talk about it later, about how you can advertise and rent or sell your house for more money. I bought this property in Talai in 2003 for $1,150,000. I was running a business out of there at the time. Now, again, did a renovation and sold it in 2007, 4 years later for $2,185,000 again for a $1,035,000 profit, less the renovation cost, which was about $300,000 or $400,000 on that property because it was quite a big project. Then I bought this property in Mermaid Beach on the Gold Coast for $1,598,000 back in 2007, and I sold that one in 2023 for a $1,950,000 profit. When I add up the income I got from it and also the capital growth that it showed me, and again sold that property myself, and I did it in a way and rented it in a way that everybody else said couldn't be done. So those are some of the things that we also teach you along the pathway, as I said. Now, that property looked like this before. You can see the lounge room was very dark. A lot of the stuff with properties comes how you present them, both to tenants and to the buyers when you're selling them. That was one of the rooms downstairs in that property. That's what we transformed it into. You can see the mirrors on the walls there. Again, made it much more attractive. That was the master bedroom. Again, transformed it into a much lighter, brighter kind of space and more appealing. I bought a unit in Broadbeach and I made $302,000 in 2.5 years. I bought that in 2019, just before COVID, one of the worst markets in the Gold Coast or in Australia at that time, certainly. And before, as you can see again, I renovated, that's what it looked like before. and I sold it in May 2021 for $1,050,000 just before the boom, right? Today, it's worth $1,650,000. But again, it's because I made the unit extremely well presented. So I manufactured value in that property, through what I did. So there's there's different ways you can make money with property. And I'll be showing some of you the way I did it in some of my other books and things you can get as well. But look, here's another example. How would you like to make $210,000 profit in just 6 months? That's exactly what I did with the next apartment I bought in the same building. Bought that in March 2021. As soon as I sold the other one and made $300,000, I bought this one and sold it in October 21 for $740,000. Again, flat market. In fact, the agent that was selling in that property at the time said to me, if you sell it for $750,000, because that's what I told him was my goal, he said, I'll run around the building naked. So he just got out of that because it just sold for under that. But have a look at the transformation from before and after. Again, renovated, the interior made it much more appealing. There's the bedroom. I'd made it like a really, really appealing unit. I created beautiful videos to sell it. Now, as you look through the apartment, you can see the detail of the wall-hung cabinetry, the $4,500 Sony TV, and the sound bar to the leather bar, which is over $4,000 worth of bar. And yes, you do get the alcohol that's in it as well. So there's ways of renting and selling properties that can, that can make a difference. Rather, those are some of the things that we do with some of the properties that you invest with us with, as we also teach you how to sell or rent those properties when you want to rent them and sell them. I've written several books on the topics of real estate. One was called Boom Suburbs, how to find the high growth areas for maximum capital growth. Before anybody else does, there's certain criteria that you can go for, you can look for. There's the book called Sold, how to sell or rent your home for faster and for more money. Again, these are skill and strategies I've learned over 40 years of dealing in real estate. So I'm not just trying to sell you a property, I'm trying to educate you on how to make money with property. There's a big difference. My last book I wrote was Creating Wealth with High Return Real Estate. I've got a copy of it right here, you can see behind me. And I've written a couple of other books on investing overseas in Bali and NDIS properties. Some of those investments have come and gone. They're not the best investments today, but certainly what we do is very, very topical for the moment for investing today. Now, my company is Sun Property Institute. We're an Australian-based education and investment company. And what we do is we educate our customers on the best strategies and options for creating wealth through property based on where you are today and your goals. Obviously, everyone's got different budgets, different criteria for buying property. So we try and work with you, and we take, that knowledge, we give it to you, and you can either use it to go and build your own investments on your own, or we can work with you to help you to find, develop, or buy high yield and capital growth properties, right? So there's lots of different options we can work with you. We also research what types of properties offer the safest and most reliable return on investment to investors, and make sure that Australian investors can invest effectively with high return on investment and tax benefits, which is obviously going to be important to you as well, because who likes paying tax? I know I don't like paying tax, and property can give you some really good advantages when it comes to your tax situation. Now, we also specialize in custom built high yield properties in hand-picked locations, usually where prices haven't yet risen. And we can also build on your land, or you may already have land, for development. We can find land for you, or we have actually projects ready to go with plans and approvals pending, where we're looking to form a partnerships and co-develop it with you. And that way you can take advantage of the capital growth and also the higher returns by actually become, in fact, a co-developer of that property with us. So what I do is I travel across Australia and overseas to look at land. I look at locations, I look at the area potential, I look at the construction progress, and basically allow you to see the best investment areas and properties firsthand.
This is just over 120 loft apartments, penthouses.
So behind me, I've got 2 properties in the same suburb. Here we are on the cusp of finishing another fantastic investment. And we've got a fantastic block sitting here, which is actually going to be approved for So these are the kind of sites we look for. Across the road from me is a big block that sometimes we can cut that one into two, and then we will construct a rooming house. Everything's pretty much sold out here except for a couple of blocks. We've got one opportunity here with a rooming house, $1,750 a week rent. And look, along the way, I've also started up some orphanages in Thailand with a couple of the people that I've worked with over the years. We've done a lot of community work. I believe it's all about giving back and also staying healthy. I'm a great believer in becoming a healthy millionaire. If you're going to make money in property, you want to stay healthy. So if you ever want to see a book that I wrote on health, I've got one of those as well. I've also got a great book in case you need a little bit of motivation and inspiration. The 47 Ways to Put a Smile on Your Face. That's another book that I wrote many, many years ago. So look, I do a lot of research and everything, all my knowledge I've put into books. So I'm not just going to sell you a property. If you buy a property from us, I work like an agent. I get paid, obviously, a commission if you do buy one. But either way, I just want to educate you and really teach you how to go out there and just make money with this amazing vehicle, which there's no better way to grow wealth in Australia, right? If you're a new Australian, like when we came 54 years ago, right, the first thing you should do is buy a property, just like my parents did. 2 years in Australia, we bought our first property. I don't care what it is, where it is, what you can afford, just buy something, because it's always better than sitting around and watching the property prices go up. I remember people saying, like back in 1974, when my parents were with a group of friends and they bought their first home unit, and people were saying, oh, you know, it's not a good time to buy now. You should have been here 10 years ago. The prices were so much lower. And imagine they made like $18,000 or whatever, $15,000 in 4 years on that home unit. And their friends waited and missed out on that. So don't hesitate. If you've got any questions, give me a call. I'd love to help you. But that's basically a little bit about myself and my investing history. And I hope I can help you along the journey for yourself as well.